What if I told you a 2,500-year-old prophecy is coming true right now? A divine plan so powerful, it's about to spark the greatest spiritual awakening in history. 3 shocking events are unfolding before our eyes, events that will change the world forever. Are you ready to discover what's happening? Let's dive in. Imagine a world on the edge of something massive, something so big it'll leave you speechless. A prophecy written 2,500 years ago by a prophet named Zechariah is no longer just words on a page. It's happening now, in our time, and it's pointing to a moment that will shake the foundations of faith, history, and the future. This isn't just a story. It's a divine promise unfolding, and you're about to see how close we are to its fulfillment. Zechariah, a man who saw the future with crystal-clear vision, predicted 3 specific signs that would lead to the most extraordinary moment in human history, the day the Jewish people recognized Jesus as their Messiah. This isn't just about one nation. It is about a spiritual awakening that will touch every corner of the globe. Let's break it down step by step and uncover the signs that are already happening. The first sign is already here, and it's been unfolding for over 70 years. Did you know the rebirth of Israel in 1948 was predicted thousands of years ago? Let's see how this tiny nation became the center of a global storm. The first sign, Israel, the cup of trembling. In Zechariah 12:2, the prophet wrote, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples." In ancient times, a cup of trembling was a drink that made people irrational, unsteady, and confused. Sound familiar? Look at the world today. Israel, a nation smaller than New Jersey, with just 0.1% of the world's land and 0.2% of its population, is at the heart of global controversy. Why does a country so small draw so much attention? On May 14, 1948, something impossible happened. David Ben-Gurion stood in a small museum in Tel Aviv and declared the birth of Israel. Within hours, 5 Arab armies, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Iraq, attacked. They had more soldiers, tanks, and planes. On paper, Israel didn't stand a chance. The Arab League vowed to push the Jews into the sea. But something miraculous happened. Israel didn't just survive, it won. Against all odds, a nation reborn after 900 years of exile stood its ground. This wasn't a one-time event. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel faced an even larger coalition. Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser mobilized 100,000 troops. Syria bombarded Israeli settlements. The world expected Israel's defeat. Instead, in just 6 days, Israel captured Jerusalem, the West Bank, Gaza, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. In 1973, during the Yom Kippur War, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on the holiest day of the Jewish calendar. Israel was caught off guard, but again, they turned the tide, ending the war just miles from Cairo and Damascus. Why does this matter? Because Zechariah didn't just predict one victory, he saw a pattern, a cup of trembling that would make Israel's enemies act irrationally. Time and again, Arab armies made mistakes that defied logic. In 1948, they fought among themselves. In 1967, Egypt's decisions invited war. In 1973, Syria's strategy crumbled. This isn't just military history, it's prophecy in action. But it's not just about wars. The world's obsession with Israel is irrational. The United Nations has passed more resolutions condemning Israel than all other nations combined, over 500 since 1945. More than North Korea's nuclear threats, China's human rights abuses, or Iran's executions. Why? Because, as Zechariah said, the world is drinking from the cup of trembling, unable to think clearly when it comes to Israel. The second sign is accelerating faster than you might realize. Jerusalem is becoming a burdensome stone that no one can move without getting hurt. Want to know how this ancient prophecy is playing out in today's headlines? Keep listening. The second sign, Jerusalem, the burdensome stone. Zechariah 12:3 says, "I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces." In the ancient world, a burdensome stone was so heavy it injured anyone who tried to lift it. That's Jerusalem today, a city that no nation, no coalition can control without paying a price. Since 1948, every attempt to take Jerusalem from Israel has failed. In the 1948 War of Independence, the Arab armies aimed to capture Jerusalem and split Israel in two. They lost, and Israel gained the western part of the city. In 1967, the goal was to retake Jerusalem. Instead, Israel unified the city under its control. In 1973, Egypt and Syria tried again to reclaim lost territories, including Jerusalem. They failed, and Israel's borders grew stronger. But this prophecy isn't just about military battles. It's about a deeper, supernatural truth. Zechariah said God would strike every horse with confusion and its rider with madness. In biblical terms, horses represent military power. Again and again, Israel's enemies have made irrational decisions. In 1967, Egypt's Nasser closed the Strait of Tiran, knowing it would provoke war. Jordan's King Hussein joined the fight despite Israel's pleas to stay neutral, losing East Jerusalem. Syria's attacks gave Israel the excuse to seize the Golan Heights. Confusion in the horses, madness in the riders, exactly as Zechariah predicted. Today, the siege on Jerusalem isn't just military, it's diplomatic, economic, and cultural. The United Nations constantly condemns Israel. The BDS, Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions movement targets Israel alone, ignoring worse human rights violations elsewhere. Media coverage paints Israel as the villain, despite its size and democratic values. But here is the catch. Zechariah said those who try to lift this burdensome stone will hurt themselves. Nations boycotting Israel lose economic opportunities. Universities pushing anti-Israel agendas lose donations. The UN's obsession with Israel undermines its own credibility. The prophecy is clear. Jerusalem cannot be moved. The third sign is the one that will change everything. Imagine millions of Jewish people around the world suddenly realizing that Jesus is their Messiah. This isn't just a religious moment. It's the key to Christ's return. Ready to be amazed? The third sign, a supernatural awakening. Zechariah 12:10 delivers the most breathtaking prophecy of all. I will pour on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplication. Then they will look on me whom they pierced. This is the moment the world has been waiting for. God will pour out his spirit on Israel, and in an instant they will recognize Jesus, the one Brian one they crucified, as their Messiah. This isn't a gradual change, it's a supernatural revelation. Zechariah wrote this 500 years before Jesus was born, yet he predicted the Messiah would be pierced, a detail impossible to know, as piercing wasn't a Jewish form of execution. When Jesus was crucified, his hands, feet, and side were pierced, fulfilling the prophecy. When Israel sees him, they'll see his wounds and understand that every Passover lamb, every sacrifice, pointed to him. This moment will be overwhelming. Zechariah says Israel will mourn as if for an only son, grieving their ancestors' rejection of Jesus. But this pain will turn to joy as they embrace their Messiah. And it won't just be individuals, it will be the entire nation, united in faith. Why does this matter to the world? For 2,000 years, skeptics have asked, if Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, why don't the Jews believe in him? When Israel proclaims Jesus as Messiah, that argument collapses. As Paul wrote in Romans 11:15, if their being cast away is the reconciling of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? Israel's acceptance of Jesus will spark a global revival, a spiritual awakening like nothing in history. But how close are we to this moment? The signs are lining up faster than you think. Let's look at the world today and see how the prophecies are coming true. The prophecies in today's world. The first sign, Israel as a cup of trembling, began in 1948 and continues today. The world's irrational focus on Israel proves it. The second sign, Jerusalem as a burdensome stone, is accelerating. For the first time in history, a coalition prophesied by Ezekiel 38 is forming. Russia, Iran, Turkey, and others are lining against Israel. Ezekiel predicted God himself would defeat this coalition, and Zechariah 14:3-4 says the Lord will stand on the Mount of Olives, the same place Jesus ascended, and will return. The third sign is already stirring. In 1948, there were fewer than 4,000 Jewish believers in Jesus. Today, there are over 350,000, a 9,000% increase in 75 years. The spiritual climate in Israel is shifting. Messianic Jews are rediscovering their scriptures, seeing Jesus in Isaiah 53, Psalm 22, and Daniel 9. The veil is lifting, and the stage is set for a national awakening. Why did Israel reject Jesus for so long? The answer lies in 5 powerful reasons, and they'll show you why this moment is so close. Why Israel waited? 5 reasons. A political Messiah. Expected. In the 1st century, Israel was under Roman rule, longing for a warrior king like David. Jesus, born in a stable and preaching humility, didn't fit their vision. They missed the lamb, waiting for the lion. A prophesied hardening. Romans 11:8 says God gave Israel a spirit of stupor for a time. Their rejection spread the gospel to the Gentiles, but Romans 11:25 promises this blindness is temporary. Unexpected holiness. Jesus ate with sinners and touched the broken, challenging the religious elite's idea of holiness. They wanted outward perfection. Jesus offered inward righteousness. The cross as a stumbling block. Crucifixion was seen as a curse in Jewish culture. How could the Messiah die such a death? They didn't see the cross as God's cure for sin. God's unfinished plan. Israel's rejection was part of God's plan, but it's not the end. Romans 11:26 promises all Israel will be saved. The veil will lift and they will see their Messiah. Picture this: millions of Jews proclaiming Jesus as Messiah, triggering a global revival. This isn't just a story, it's the key to Christ's return. Here's what it means for the world. The global impact. When Israel recognizes Jesus, the world will change. The media will cover it endlessly. Skeptics will be silenced. As Romans 11:12 says, Israel's fullness will bring riches to the world, a revival like resurrection. Synagogues will worship Yeshua. Jewish scholars will reveal Jesus in the Old Testament. And Jesus himself said in Matthew 23:39, "You shall see me no more till you say, 'Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.'" Israel's acceptance is the key to his return. How close are we? The signs are clear. Israel's rebirth, Jerusalem's burden, the forming coalition of enemies, and the growing number of Jewish believers all point to the fulfillment of Zechariah's prophecy. The spiritual awakening is near, and it will usher in the return of the King. This isn't just a prophecy, it's a promise. The day Israel says, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," the world will never be the same. Are you ready for what's coming? A call to watch and pray. The world is on the brink of something extraordinary. Zechariah's 2,500-year-old prophecy is unfolding before our eyes. Israel's rebirth, the global obsession with Jerusalem, the forming coalition of enemies, and the rising faith in Jesus among Jews are signs of the times. The greatest spiritual awakening in history is coming, and it will culminate in Christ's return. So, what should we do? Watch the signs. Pray for Israel. Share this story. The day is closer than you think, when Israel will lead the world in worship, proclaiming, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." The King is coming. Are you ready?